Mr. Chips, do you want to do the intro and we can get going?
First of all, everybody, welcome to our automation photography workshop. Um, Basically, what we're going to be doing today is, as Rob talked about, we're going to be talking about the ins and the outs of taking photos in automation and how to showcase your cars as best as possible. We're going to talk quite a bit about the common mistakes that are made that we've both noticed over the last little while, both in terms of my searching for cars to post on the automation Instagram and Twitter accounts, as well as the submissions that we had for the recent crossover play challenge, and also what we're seeing in the face of the update challenge submissions. We're also going to go through some of the not so very well known tools that exist in automation. We actually have some very powerful tools to change, and especially the lighting in your photos. Yeah, what we're going to do is a quick presentation from Rob. There's going to be a bit of discussion of what I specifically look for social media cars, and then we'll throw the field open to questions as Rob and I go through some of the cars that we've and some of the photos that we've seen that have caught our attention, both good and not so good. So thank you everybody for showing up. It's much appreciated. And I guess without further ado, let's begin.
All right, what should be the first bit? Do you want to talk first about what you are in general noticing for the social media posts, how you are selecting those? Because that I think is already going to give us a bit of a hint as towards what I'm going to be talking about as well in my 2D composition presentation that I'm going to give, which is a short one. It's not going to take a long time, but I think that would be good if you get started.
Absolutely. So when I'm looking for cars for the social media for automation, the first thing that I am looking for is a car that is well shot. I will almost always choose sort of an average to above average car that's shot really, really well compared to an excellent car that has a lot of sort of photography errors in it. And the first and foremost that I see a lot of times, just as Rob has shown up on the screen here, is that you want your car to have a very strong contrast with the background. So if you have a light colored car, you want it against sort of a dark background, or vice versa. If you have dark colored car, you want it against a light colored background. The idea is you want it to sort of pop visually. And the best way to test that is what is known in the photography and the gaming world as the quote unquote squint test. So the idea there is you make the photo blurry. And what that does is it'll take away a lot of the sort of the details and stuff that catch the eye, and basically what you're looking at is just colors at that point. I think Rob is just doing that a little bit here. We'll just give him a chance to. Yeah, that's perfect. So in the stream there, Rob has made this orange supercar a little bit blurry. And the idea here is that where your eye is drawn immediately when you first take a look at it, that's kind of where where your brain focuses on the car. And this one actually does quite well because it's got a very bright color for the car and sort of a very simple background. So your eye is immediately drawn straight to the center of the car. And that is important because when you're looking through the social media and stuff, the first thing you want to do is have something that grabs your attention right away. That's a very good one. And a lot of the times I see cars that are shot, and this is not something that I blame anybody for except the actual automotive industry because they are notorious for doing this, the quote unquote dark teaser. So that's probably the number one reason why a lot of cars don't get featured on social media is you'll have a dark car that's hidden in a dark background, just like this one here that Rob has. And I'm sure it's a very nice car, but we really can't tell because all you see are sort of the jaggy little lights that are set up in the photo scene and the lights and then the windshield. And then the rest of the car just kind of sinks away into the background. And that is a surefire way to not be featured.
Let's do the squint test on this one.
So in this car here, you have a little bit of an area where the windshield kind of stands out, but the rest of it you have all these sort of jagged lines and intersecting lines all around the car. So your immediate reaction when you see this for the very first time and do sort of your initial process on it is your eye kind of gets drawn away from where the car is because there's the intersecting lines and the lightness surrounding, and then there's not a very strong contrast between the background and the foreground. So this one, unfortunately, would be passed over for social media, just because it doesn't grab your attention right away. And it's not just um, dark backgrounds and dark cars. The other thing is I see a lot of shots, especially a lot of shots that are shot in sort of twilight, which usually is a very nice time to shoot a car, but you'll often see that it really makes for a muddy sort of scene where you'll have the car. This is a prime example of that, where the lighting is otherwise could be quite good, but the car just there just isn't enough light to illuminate the car.
And we will actually present the perfect cure for this problem later on in this workshop.
Yes, the cure actually does exist in the game, which is it's a really powerful tool. So actually, there's another one there, Rob. If you scroll down,
Mm-hmm.
that goes to my next point.
Yes.
And the next point is you want your car to be the primary focus of and that's exactly the one there. You want your car to be the primary focus of the picture. This is otherwise it could actually be quite a nice car, but the problem is it's so small and so widely framed in the picture that you're not really getting a sense of what the details are on the car. And you have to actually and this one is extreme enough, you actually have to wonder what is the focus of the picture.
And I tend to say that's the difference between a nice landscape shot with a car versus a car shot with landscape.
Exactly. And this one really kind of flirts with that border of is this a car shot with a landscape or a landscape shot with a car? So when I'm looking for pictures for the social media, again, you want the car to be the primary focus. And you want it to fill up a large majority of the frame, if not as I wouldn't say necessarily completely fill up the frame from corner to corner to corner, but certainly take up a large part of it. And we'll get into the composition part later in Rob's presentation when we're talking about the rule of thirds and whatnot. Yeah, I think that basically covers sort of the two major points that I wanted to convey with how I select pictures for the social media. I think if everybody's satisfied with that, I think we will continue with Rob's presentation here.
Yes. All right. I have prepared an old presentation that I have made. It was originally made for a tramping club that was going out to the most beautiful places in the world in New Zealand and then taking absolutely atrocious images. And I was rather dismayed at that fact, so I gave them a kind of quick workshop on how to do better photography when you're tramping, because you don't need much. Even a compact camera is enough to take good photos, and automation, you have full control over everything, so you don't have any excuses whatsoever. You don't even have to carry the camera up the mountain. So, all right, 2D composition. This is what I'm quickly going to have a talk about with you. And there are a few rules, or call them guidelines, in 2D composition. And they are there for good reason. Because you say art is free expression, and I tell you that equally, my free expression says that your art sucks. One very important thing here, which already is making the link to why composition is so important, is that you probably know that it's very easy to see faces in things. And then that would point towards that it's also quite important to make things well composed in your shots. Because there seems to be a link there. That's still very vague, but let's talk about some of this stuff, and it will come to you very quickly. Golden ratio. Golden ratio is one of those fundamentals in 2D composition, and rule of thirds is kind of linked to that, but we're getting to this. The golden ratio is simply that you have a distance that you cut into two pieces, a smaller piece and a larger piece, and you cut it such that the smaller piece compares to the larger piece like the larger piece compares to the whole distance. That has a solution, which is a number. It's a ratio, and that is the golden ratio. It is the number 1.618, blah, blah, blah. So, why is that important, and where do we see it? Right? That is coming from the Fibonacci sequence. And you may have heard about that one. In the Fibonacci sequence, that's the sequence, and it continues forever, which is just simply built by starting with a 0 and a 1, and then the next number is the sum of the two previous ones. So this would be 1. Then you have 1 plus 1 is 2. And then 5 here for the 2 plus 3. And 34 plus 55 is 89. And so on and so on. And this sequence converges towards the golden ratio. All right. Well, that's cool. That's math, right? But why is that important? Well, funnily enough, that ratio appears basically everywhere. Like, you can see it in natural phenomenon, like hurricanes, that has the structures that appear there often. In galaxies, so on all kinds of scales. In seashells, in all kinds of plants, you will find the Fibonacci sequence in those numbers there for how many petals there are. It's usually a Fibonacci number. And all kinds of structures. But also, most importantly, in human faces. The human face is very much composed with the golden ratio. And even the subdivisions. So you can see the different subdivisions here. And that brings us to the rule of thirds. Well, if the golden ratio is like everywhere, and we want to mimic it, there is this so-called rule of thirds. It's basically the golden ratio for dummies. And that's not to say that it isn't useful. So let me help you out here. If we split up an image into its parts, and follow along here, this is not too bad. If we just take the horizontal axis, the x-axis here, and we split up the image into 2 bits, like a smaller part, a smaller slice, this is this line here, and the larger slice, which is from here all the way to the start of the image. That would be a golden ratio cut through the image. You can do the same mirrored, so take the larger portion here, and the smaller portion on this side instead. And that will work out just as well. Also golden ratio. Now you can do in Y as well. And you get 2 more golden ratio lines. And what that gives you is 9 sectors of unequal size and shape with 4 intersections. And those intersections are what I call the double golden ratio. These are points in an image which the eye and brain, in its analysis of the image, are naturally drawn to. And why are they? Why is that? Why is it naturally drawn to that? Here we just have a random tramping picture from that I took in New Zealand sometime. And when you look at this one, you will probably say, if you like it or not, doesn't really matter. But what feeling do you get when you look at it? It's probably like, yeah, this is a really solid shot. Solid, yes. Yes, it is. Why does it feel solid? Why does it feel in place and rather natural the way it is laid out? Well, let's overlay a little bit this previous one here. We have the golden ratio right there for the person. Also, that is something that Mr. Chips talked about right before then. This is also the highest contrast point in the image. So the eye is naturally drawn to the high contrast part between the silhouette and the bright clouds. And that being on the golden ratio then accomplishes in kind of an amplification effect. When the human brain is analyzing photos, what we are looking at is golden ratios. But why is that really? That's interesting. Well, what is the most important thing in your life, at least early on? Well, usually it's other people. And other people you communicate with are composed with the golden ratio. When you look at their eyes, when you talk to them, their face is composed by the golden ratio. All those rules apply there. So where to look is inherently programmed into you, and those points are the golden ratio. So the golden ratio is the most natural, the most beautiful, the perfect proportion, and a marker of good genes. That is why distorted faces tend to be very unattractive. All right, let's move forward. This one here is an example of a kind of trial run in terms of golden ratio. It's a picture I took in Denmark many, many years ago. I saw those two fellas walking into the scene and thought, like, okay, this is an opportunity. Let's wait for them to be at the right spot. So one thing that you notice is that these are World War II bunkers, by the way, which they've put metal horse heads onto. It's kind of funny. But this horse bunker is right in the center of the picture, which usually is not the way to compose an image, because the brain would naturally want to have it at a golden ratio if it's the main focal point. But then something interesting happens, and this is very applicable to car shots, because cars are not a singular object when you look at them from close on. They actually have features like a human face, and often manufacturers are designing them exactly that way and for that reason, because humans are so good at identifying those features if they are organized in the same way. So we need to subdivide or continue looking at an image after the main thing has been spotted and then subdivide. So what happens here? The highest contrast portion in the image, which comes in first, is probably this horse head. It is on the, it has the starkest silhouette of them all. So, okay, we found this, and this wasn't quite on the golden ratio. Okay, so far no harm done. The brain is pretty quick, so before it judges, it has another shot at it. So, if we take this as a benchmark point, this horse head, and then go to the edge of the image and draw our golden ratios there, then this dude is exactly on the golden ratio. If we then have this as our benchmark point, then this dude is on the golden ratio. So that's a nice subdivision into this direction. What happens if we go into the other direction? If we take this, our benchmark point, which we spotted first, and we go into the other direction, the frame of the image, well, then this horse head is exactly on the golden ratio. Okay, then we take this horse head and go to the frame of the image. Well, then this one is on the golden ratio, and actually this one as well. So you see, this is kind of this seems very artificial when you describe it, but to the brain, this is completely natural. And also something that was used, this higher order golden ratios, was used through lots of art throughout the with paintings and whatnot. Like they have gone to extremes there with like, fourth order golden ratio is what we are aiming for here, and then just subdividing everything and making it spot on. And those pictures are very harmonious to look at. But let me give you some tips here for how to compose images so that they become right, apart from just placing things at the golden ratio and thinking about the subdivisions from there to also be golden ratios. Because it's more than that, obviously. You can't just make a good picture by just that. So one very important thing to keep in mind is that Westerners read from left to right in an image. You enter the picture from the left-hand side and you leave the picture to the right-hand side. And you go in from the top and you leave at the bottom. You can use diagonals and leading lines as well as symmetries to point towards the main points of interest. And what also tends to be quite nice and work out well is when you connect the foreground to the subject in the background. So you have a depth connection in the image as well, so that it's not just it does give you the 3D feel for it. So what you can do is try to move around with your camera and try to get different perspectives, and also don't hesitate to go low. Because if you go low, it is much easier to connect the foreground to the subject in the more background or in the main plane of attention. And also you want to keep it simple and don't overcrowd the picture. There's too much information, especially when you can't compose it perfectly, which you usually can't, then that gets too much. So a few examples, really simple. Leading line, rainbow, yes! So, but also waterfall lines, right to the people. So these are definitely the focal point, but we have leading lines, river, rainbow, waterfall, all pointing towards them, which makes it less weird that they are completely off the golden ratio. Even the lower one would be right there. the upper one there, then we would have one there, and one there. There is nothing to see in those places, but that doesn't matter because we have leading lines that make up for it. This one is very, very simple, that because you have motion in the picture, which also applies to car pictures when you take them in motion, the lines of speed of the perspective make that these lines of the water forming, or this direction of the water, is all leading back to what is supposed to be the main focal point of the image, which is this tiny little waterfall thing there. Then this one is very strongly composed. Took me a while to walk around there and grab it in exactly the right place. What instantly is visible is this main subject of the image, this kind of hand-like structured rock. And you have leading lines from the rocks in the foreground, all going there, which makes this one a stronger focal point. And once you have arrived at this focal point, you mark this one with your marker, and then take it from where you entered the image, put on your golden ratio lines. Where do you end up? On this rock. Okay, now you have this one as your marker. Take it to here. What is on the golden ratio? Well, this little one. If you take it from here to this edge, you have this rock on the golden ratio, and so on and so forth. So that is something that works pretty well. Takes some time to compose, but the effect is not that it looks artificial, but very natural and quite striking. And that is something that you can reach with your car shots as well. This is an example of diagonals being used, and only diagonals being used, because there's really nothing else to this image. It's very simple. You have the positive diagonal with the tracks going through the sand, and then you have the sand lines going the other direction. It's quite intriguing, but not really special, but it works compositionally because it's using the strong diagonals as well. And here, just basically a combination of things. Foreground leading into the picture with the lines from this little track, and main subject in the double golden ratio, and otherwise just very New Zealand. Much sheep. Wow. Okay. This one doesn't feature golden ratio, because it doesn't have to. It's a very symmetrical situation that you are in here. So we are using symmetry to build the image. Symmetry is something that is usually your friend if you use it. And then don't hesitate to put your main subject exactly in the middle and use the symmetries around it to really hammer home that point. That works usually very well with cars, because they are, just like human faces, symmetrical. All right. So one very important part that we have already just hinted at, Mr. Chips has talked about that a little bit more, is direction and flow of the image. Especially important when it comes to car shots. So there is one sure shot way of making people really uncomfortable looking at your images. And that is when the main subject is close to an edge and looking out of that edge. So when you are placing your car in a scene, and let's say it is oriented from, it's looking to the left, then you want to put it more to the right in the image if you want to give a safe and steady feel. And if you want to have the picture have a nervous feel, you place it further to the left, so that it has very little distance to where it is looking. We will see a few examples of this when we are getting to your shots, and I will point this out then. So this will be interesting. Also, what you want to do usually is that the brighter part of the image, the non-shadowy part, is taking up the larger portion of the shot, and the shadows are the smaller portion. Otherwise, the image overall gets very dark. Of course, this is not a general, an always true rule, but it's a good guideline. And then, also very important, get close to the car or whatever you're shooting, but don't try to cram it into the frame. That usually gets a claustrophobic sense to it, and that's just the car needs to breathe. It sounds weird, but the main subject in the image needs to have some breathing space. All right, and before we look at your examples, how do you improve? What is the best way to improve? Over the years, I've found that the best way to improve is to, when you like an image, to ask yourself, why do you like the image? And that might be a very simple answer because, well, there's the subject matter is beautiful. But compositionally, why do you like the image? Always challenge yourself to give you objective reasons. Like, what is the composition doing right so that the image is good? And what could be done better? Even if you like an image, there's usually something to it that could be even better. Ask yourself what that could be and what you would change if you could. So, now, where do we continue, Mr. Chips?
Well, we have one question that came in during the discussion. That's from R. Beamer, and that is, are you a large format photographer?
No, but, well, I'm a standard format photographer, so not small frame, but standard. But I do a lot of stitching, which then gives medium format. I've done a lot of landscape photography with lots of stitching going on, so that it would be the equivalent of like large format. But this is all large format, like it's a professional camera.
Okay, well, I guess what we'll probably do now is go through some pictures that have been submitted, some of the dozens and dozens that you've all sent in. Thank you very much for all of that, by the way. And we'll just have a quick discussion on these.
That will be interesting, and we are going to try and apply those general rules. And I think we are going to take this one right away, and just mention that this one would probably do a little bit better if there was a bit more space to the left-hand side, because this one is implying a movement direction towards the left, and it has even more space to the right than it has to the left. This makes me a little uneasy. So what we can do here is just copy the image, and now this is for the first image. It's always a little dicey, but let's do it like this. Then, of course, I just want to show you the effect of it. So, canvas the size, we place the image that way, we add some width, maybe, let's say just 200 extra pixels, something like this. And now select this, Shift F5, see if that does any good. Yeah, okay. You might notice a slight change in feel to the image. That this one feels more right than the other one. At least I get the feel. It's less upsetting, even though the perspective, the extra drawn stuff in here does look a little weird. You have to take into account that would look normal if you had composed it like this from the start. I think this looks a little bit more natural.
Absolutely. Anytime you're having, as Rob mentioned, anytime you have a car that has implications of movement to it, you kind of want to have it look like the car is moving from one side to the other in the direction and have more space off on the side the car is moving to, because it just feels more natural, basically.
Unless you want to specifically make the person looking at the image feel this unease. Sometimes you want that. Sometimes that's a great effect to go for. But
that is true.
That is the minority of the cases. So if you are unsure, then this is always the way to split up the image. A little bit more space in the direction of the car pointing towards. Here that is almost the case, but it could be would be better with just a tiny bit more there as well. Otherwise, it's pretty good in that it is nicely framed. Otherwise, just needs this a little bit of extra space. It's nice and big car, and speed is implied. Even though the blur currently, I think, in the game isn't working properly, so that's probably why the wheels aren't moving, looking like moving. All right, go through here. I think this one is an interesting one, because you have chosen to put this. Yeah, look at this down here. This floor is beautifully dark and detailed, and then the car is really flat. And then everything around the car, the brighter stuff, is no longer nice and dark so that the car can stand out, but quite bright and grey. kind of the same tonality as this. So if we were to change anything about this, I think it's nicely set there. It would be lighting. That's the main issue with this one. There is too little contrast between this portion of the foreground and just surroundings of the car and the car itself. And there are no real highlights along it either. So it doesn't quite pop in this scene. And one thing that we could try, let's just quickly put it in here. One thing we could try is go into camera raw and try to put on some little quick filter. One of the things that you will see me do quite a lot is to put on the clarity filter, which is fantastic for cars. Less fantastic for people. don't use it too much on those because they will look terrifying afterwards. But for things, that tends to work really well. And you want to be a little bit selective where you put that. So what we're going to do is mask the car in this one, and we have that size, yes, and I want to show the mask where I'm applying it. So I'm just going to paint it in real quick, like this. Very rough. This is only for showing the effect, right? Deactivate the mask again, and now you can see the effects of it. So there's shadows. That's fine. The shadows were quite good, but clarity. If we up the clarity, you can see that it starts to pop more because it creates more contrast. This is a clarity is a micro contrast filter, and that usually helps things pop a little bit more. Very good for car shots in general. But yes, I think this one, if you compare before and after there, you see that the car has now a little bit more bite to it, a bit more pop. Still doesn't fix the surroundings, but the car is looking more appropriate.
Something I like to add to that is that even though it's extremely cliche in a lot of shots, this is actually a situation with this car that I'd actually recommend in-game to use a little bit of vignetting in automation.
Yes.
Because what that'll do is it'll just slightly darken around the edges of the background and get rid of some of the really odd, bright areas surrounding the car and actually draw the eye more into the center of the picture.
Yes, absolutely. That's correct. Like you see that is helping quite a bit.
Use it sparingly, though.
Yes. It tends to look better the wider angle your shot is. And it definitely doesn't have a place in telephoto shots, or what is implied as a telephoto, which means a long focal length. So yes, I agree. A little bit of vignette does solve lots of the issue. Look at that. That's looking a lot better than before. Yeah, I agree. Good point there. So, next one. I think this is an excellent example of how difficult it is to take good shots of dark cars. I can't tell what kind of details are on this car. It's very hard to see. For this, you need a little bit of better lighting, but also, again, like one of the things that really would help is a micro contrast filter, because you do have minor contrasts on that, because you have those reflections. So let's quickly just paste that in here. I should be going to view, and that is that one. All right. So let's try that out real quick. Just going to paint it again. And if you say that, oh, but Kerob, I don't have Photoshop, I can't be doing this. Well, that doesn't really matter all too much, because what we are going to do is to also tell you later on how to set up some lighting that will, in general, create more of this detail and highlights and whatnot in automation itself. So before you get there, so the basic, and then we go for let's paint it on. We can paint that on, and look how they start to pop. Like that is a massive difference. I'm going to swap between before and after. Okay, apart from this little pin being there and my selection of the area being absolutely atrocious, you see that is a massive difference to the black car problem. So very easy to fix in post. Not as easy to fix in automation, but proper lighting will get around most of these issues.
And we will do a demonstration of how to mess around with some of the lighting tools in automation and also use a very powerful tool, the lighting props.
Yes. Um, this is good. Okay, let's take a look at this one. What do you say? What do you see, Mr. Chips? What do you see?
Well, I see two of the same car, and what I also see is how they kind of lead into one another, talking about the leading lines. You have
Yes,
the car in the background leading to the car in the foreground,
that's
and
very
vice
good. Yes.
versa.
Which car do you see first as a Westerner?
Personally, I see the one in the background first.
Yes, exactly. And that is because you're getting into the picture, reading the picture from top left to bottom right. So you see that car first, but that car is pointing to the other car, so it's a natural kind of progression to the car. And now let me show you what happens here. You see my mouse pointer, right?
Yep, sure can.
Yeah, okay, cool. I just want to make sure. So if you get into the picture, you read it from left to right, you see this car first. It's pointing towards this car. And then it is natural because we are so tuned towards looking at humans and human interaction that what we are looking for is, what is this car looking at? Well, it's this car. What is this car looking at? Ugh! It's looking right out of the picture. I think I know what to do to make this even better because it's very nicely, in a nuanced way, it's also very nicely lit. I really like it. Despite it being very gray, it has a very nice contrast to it. So let's copy this one. I think I can make it better though. Let's paste that in here. This car looking out of the picture so quickly is, I think, slightly suboptimal. So what I'm going to do is just add a few pixels down below, and that's why canvas size, pop the image to the top, and we are going to add, maybe just make it a few hundred pixels. It's not much. And now we select the area, Shift F5 it, and has to calculate there. How does this picture look?
Much more balanced.
It does look more balanced. At least I think so. Let's fit it on screen. I think that is looking more harmonious because there's little space here. It's good. It's fine. But there needs to be more space where the car is headed, and this is down. In this case, down and to the side. There's plenty of room here to the left, but down was not enough space. So this might actually have been slightly too much already, ever so slightly, but just adding a little bit down there, I think, has helped the picture quite a bit. So, yes, let's go further and look at it before and after. You see that this one looks more settled. Even though, like, this is a really good picture, but it feels slightly cut off to the lower end. Here we have some compositing shots with real-life imagery. That is a very tricky thing to do. That's super hard. Let's take a look at some of these. Oh, also, that's a very bright moon you have there, mister. I assume that's actually correct. It's a long time exposure. If you can see the stars like this is probably actually correct lighting. But it is very upsetting to people who look at it because they are not used to things being that bright at night in a long time exposure. And I can see that the reflections, of course, aren't matching the actual scene. So we have something coming in automation, though, that will fix that issue. Also for kind of real life scenes. It's a little bit of work on your end then, but we will have some tools for that to make absolutely amazing shots with this. That just being said, I think that this is another candidate for adding slightly more space down at the bottom, but not much. Otherwise, it's nicely placed in the image. Anything to add, Mr. Chips?
Yeah, the big thing that I've noticed is that with a lot of real-world compositing shots is that it's a very, very difficult thing to pull off. Well done, it looks really, really good, but especially if the car's lighting doesn't really match what's going on in the foreground and background, it's a little bit, it feels like it's just been kind of plopped into place, and it doesn't really match.
And I think this one is a great example of how it's done perfectly, because this is
Yes.
almost looking spot on. Almost perfect. It is passing beyond the uncanny valley of compositing. And just this, I think just the lighting here is slightly too bright. If this was slightly darker, I believe it would have been a pretty much perfect fit. But this is wonderfully done, by the way. It's not the best photo of a car, but it's damn impressive to to have it like this, to get it this well put into a real life shot.
Yeah, I really quite liked how that one turned out.
Oh, here we have one, Mr. Chips. Here we have one. You go through that one.
Okay, well, again, the lighting is a little bit odd in this one, so the car kind of feels like it's been just kind of dropped in place. Um, so right away, it feels a little bit unnatural. The
But
other
it's
part of it is,
on overall, I think it's pretty reasonably well done, considering that it's just a composite, or just that it is a composite. What sticks out is
yeah,
that these reflections here suggest that it is daylight, full daylight, not not dusk, like in this image. This looks like it's full illumination on the ground, which it isn't. So that's the only thing that's really sticking out to me in terms of compositing. Otherwise, really nicely done. But then composition, 2D composition.
hmm. So this one kind of it doesn't really adhere to the golden ratios. And the other thing that I notice is that there's an awful lot of sky up above, so
Yes.
it kind of pulls the attention away from the car and sort of, why is there so much sky? What is the photographer trying to show us that's up there that's important?
And also, the car is headed into wrong direction, right? That's also something that I'm noticing. I need to make yeah, that is the correct size. I think if we add a little bit of image, or quite a lot, this could work out a fair bit better. Let's add 400 pixels there, and we plop it there. And now I think this will work out a little better if the fill does work out reasonably well. Yeah, it does. Okay. So let's take a look at this. View, and I need to fit on screen is with Control 0. Okay. Does this feel better in terms of composition? I think so, right? Now the sky being completely open is still a little awkward, but now the positioning here is not like I'm looking away from you while standing in the corner, so just looking at the frame of the image, not leading anywhere. Like, think about it like this: the viewer takes a look at the picture, finds the edge of the car, sees the car is looking in this direction. The viewer wants to know, where is it? What is it looking at? Well, there was the frame, right there. So yeah, nothing. And then the viewer drops out of the image. That was the image. That is not as satisfying as doing what we just did. And I need to clear the ratio and have it freeform. And now the grid here that you see is the rule of thirds. So it's the golden ratio for dummies. We don't want to use this. If you want to know where the golden ratio is, just go a little bit on the inside, like here, basically. There, and there. And I think this one will look quite a bit better. Let's cut it right there. And there you have the shot. I think this has a better 2D composition than this one. Do you see the difference?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Now, I should say with the original shot is that if the original shot was not intended just to be this, like if you were actually making a car ad out of it, that would actually work better because then you have all this open space for text and other things to put in there.
That is a very good point. It very much depends on the purpose for what the image is made for. You can't just blatantly say, "Oh, this is useless," because it might have a different purpose where this open space is just perfect. You can put lots of data there, text and whatnot, without interfering with then what would be this image. But yes, I still think there needs to be more space there. So if if there was supposed to go stuff in the sky, I would still have put the car to start there and end here so that there's more space to the right. But yes, all right. Should we continue on? These
Yes.
are really nice, by the way. That's cool. It's really nicely made. And
that is
yeah.
a very difficult thing to do, is actually not just with compositing, but even with the props we have, is that if you can find a way to add people into the shot, it really brings a lot of life to
Yes.
the cars and to your subject, for sure.
Okay, here we have another one where automation is kind of making things hard for you, because these reflections are more detailed than the car. That's a problem. That is a big problem. It's not really your problem, but if you're taking the image, that is a problem. So you see that the engine bay from underneath is more detailed even than the car. So if you look at this image, what instantly is visible is this part of the car. It's looking down. What do you see? Oh, there's a lot of stuff going down here, and then you're stuck, because this one also kind of goes nowhere or points out of the frame. So you don't quite get to here. Also, this one doesn't bring you back into the image, but just leads you out of it, which means that you're not necessarily coming back. Yeah, so I think that's mainly an automation problem, but too strong reflections usually are not the greatest of things. Let me show you a real quick thing what you can do to make it slightly less awkward. Wait a sec, that is the wrong... Yeah, that was the wrong size. So, here. So what we can do is just darken it a little bit where the reflection is, underneath the car. That usually helps a fair amount. Let me show you. So we paint that in, not quite as large. We don't need more clarity. In this case, we probably want to have less clarity because it shouldn't be drawing as much attention. So something like this is going to be fine. And nope, no color on it. All right, now, so we're making it darker. Making it darker. All right, making that darker as well. There. And especially here. And now we can adjust what that does. And you already see that the car starts to pop a lot more. Now you do a before after. You see that as soon as I darken it, like the actual design of the car becomes much more focus than if you have that as bright as it was before. I think that helped, but of course it doesn't get rid of all the problems, but yes. Anything you wanted to add there, Mr. Chips?
That one it probably could have benefited from being centered a little bit better in the frame, because with the reflections on the bottom, it kind of really, it makes the picture feel very sort of bottom heavy, and it kind of draws your eye out towards the bottom and down out of the frame.
Yes.
Because it's...
The balance was definitely much better suited for this kind of aspect ratio.
Yeah.
Like there.
And that's something that we should maybe touch on, as well as where to position the horizon in relation to your frame.
Yeah.
Because that's a very important thing for composition.
It is. It is. And usually you want to have it... So depending on what you want to photograph, this is a poor example. Maybe the horses are a better one. Horizon probably should be around-ish, either golden ratio, depends on where you have your main subject, of course, but so that the sky usually takes less portion of it. But in the case of this situation, you have to think about your line of reflection. Where's that? Because that becomes kind of an artificial horizon in that case. And that shouldn't be too far away from the center. That's why we wanted to move those up. Like this one would look even better if the cars were higher up, even in this shot now with this aspect ratio. So if we added a little bit here, canvas size and height, let's add 200 pixels. Yeah, that will be good. And we put it there. Yes, that already looks way better. Let's put it like this, Shift F5, and see what Photoshop does with this. Oh no, it's pretty decent. that is a much more natural looking weight. It's no longer bottom heavy. And just like Mr. Chips was saying there, the weight was way to the bottom of the image. Now let's compare again. This one before, this one after. I think it's pretty clear that this one here that is edited feels way more balanced and has less problems with the reflection being too bright as well. But yes, that was a good point. Thanks for making that. This one is neat. That's cute. That gets bonus points for that creativity. It's beautiful, isn't it?
Father and son.
Yep, definitely. Lighting here is very questionable. That is something that our little lighting tour in automation will show you how to spruce this up. They are not popping against the background because everything is colorful. Everything has the all kinds of tonalities in here, and this is actually the darkest part of the image, the car down here. So it is difficult to make it pop properly, and it doesn't in this case. The red line and stuff helps, but this is also a separation line where you see, okay, there's car above, and below there's I don't know what is there. It's like sludge. So better lighting, custom lighting here with the light props, which we're going to talk about, would have done wonders in this shot. All right, let's continue on. This is really well composited, by the way. It's super tricky because you can't get the focal point just right. One thing that this is missing is that you see that you don't have quite the same aperture that you were using. This guy here is probably standing before the end of the car, well before the end of the car, and he's already a little blurry. I can see the same amount of blur that is on him on this back portion of the car. I think you needed a shallower depth of field here, so a lower aperture number for the shot. But yes, this is very nicely done. And the build is cool as well. Oh, here by Tom. So this is frame filling in a bad way. As we talked about already and have shown in other pictures, this one would very much benefit from having some more breathing room. And this is the case for all of them. So if we go down here, these would benefit a lot from more poppy lighting. And we're going to show that to you with the light props. And same there for interior shots. I don't know. There's a lot of golden ratio of things that we should be that can be looked at because that's details. These here would Oh, okay. If you use too shallow depth of field, then everything looks like toys, like these. These look like toy cars. Also has to do with the asphalt having slightly off scale. I think this is way too rough. This should be finer. And you can't change that. That's the problem with the scene. But that makes also the cars look tiny in this. Otherwise, pretty nicely done, I would say. Could be a little bit further out in terms of zoom.
Of course, that can sometimes be your intended effect, is to actually make your car look like
Yes.
a toy.
Then I would make it even more extreme, though. Yes, I would make it more extreme in that case. It's a little bit like the Dutch angle. When you're holding the camera deliberately a little bit tilted, you want to make the tilt far enough so that it's obvious that it was intended. If it's just a slight amount, then it feels like you're a shit photographer. So that's kind of the same effect here. Yes, this might be kind of a tilt shift effect to make them look like toys, but I would go a little bit stronger in this effect then, if that is the intended effect. So to make it very clear that it is intended, that they are supposed to be toys. Yes, in this one, it's a good example of really boring lighting, but otherwise pretty solid. I would have moved the car a little bit further to the right, maybe. Just a tiny bit. Otherwise, pretty good. And one shot here. This is in... Is this in automation?
Yes, it is.
Automation
Ah,
Australia map. I have it open right now, actually.
okay. Yes.
That
So,
is the highway section.
okay.
You're
You
not
got
the
very,
first one to make that mistake. I've made it several times thinking, is that
yes.
actually automation or not?
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very detailed foliage. Um,
Open source, all right.
yes. So this one has very odd lighting. I don't know if that is a flaw with the skybox, or maybe it is an issue with just being potato settings or something for the
Yeah,
lighting.
that's a thing that occurs during potato settings.
Okay,
Generally potato
well,
released.
fair enough.
If it's lighting quality related, I can't remember.
That scene looks very different, especially with ray tracing on. The
Oh
trees.
yeah, there's a bit. There's. I just took a picture right now. It should be near the bottom.
All right, let's. Well, I can't really scroll down because then I lose where I am. But yeah, for later. Then we have. Oh, I think that's a. We just need to look at this, and we already know what's wrong in that. It is probably deliberately shot such that it looks like an action shot where you just manage to snap something and it's all weird and out of frame. So I don't think that works as anything but an action shot that is in context with other things. If you just want to present your car, I don't think that quite works. Otherwise, nice car, and the lighting kind of does work, although it could use some more clarity and stuff. A little bit of cheating in Photoshop. And this one is also one that kind of doesn't work. What am I supposed to be looking at here? I think you wanted me to focus on the steering wheel, but that steering wheel is not in one of those points that I would naturally tend towards. It feels like I'm missing part of the car here, and I don't have a good starting point. This line that is leading from the corner is leading away from the interesting bits. So this line coming from the corner, which always is a good start point for the diagonals, like we mentioned before, is leading to nowhere. So that's a little unfortunate. And the lighting on here is not optimal. It's very hard to see what's going on. There's nothing that really stands out. So this could be improved, especially with secondary light sources.
Another thing to point out with that one is it's when you're taking a shot of down the side of a car, it's a very tricky shot to pull off properly, and there's a lot of tricks to doing that really, really well. One of the things you actually want to do is basically consider think of sort of like single point perspective where you have all of the car off on the left hand side and then it basically all of the lines go to a vanishing point right sort of on the far right corner of your screen. And what you want to do
Preferably
is
still on
actually
the screen.
yes, exactly. And what you want to do is have sort of basically start at the very rear of the car, like even have some of the tail light in the car, and then have just look right down the side, sort of tapering right to the front. That provides kind of a really dramatic shot that this one doesn't really do. So
I agree with that.
shots of the side are, like I said, they're really difficult to pull off. And good ones are really good, but really bad ones kind of really stand out.
Here, someone has gone through the effort of making people appear in there, and I love the fact that it is taken in a scene where there's also mannequins in there to hammer home the fact that these are real and these are not. She looks like hovering though. I don't know if that is quite right. Um, that might just be the ambient occlusion not quite picking up on that prop being there. But yes, otherwise, this is also one that would benefit from, unless it is a documentary kind of shot, it would benefit from additional lights being placed around here to give this car a bit more pop. Because it is a brown car in front of a brown shop, in front of a brown shirt, and it's quite brown. And the same goes here. Not quite as extreme, but the car is much harder to see. And I think she is floating, isn't she? And here we have a series of quite some nice shots we are going to take a look at. Just mentioning quickly here, more space, a little bit more space downwards would be great. Lights on would also probably make the front pop a lot more. Although it's not necessarily required, but also I would say a secondary light that comes from the left-hand side, off to the side, maybe a little bit to the back of the car, bouncing on the side would really get you some nice highlights on these ridges, making stronger lines in the image. And if that is combined with having slightly more space to the bottom, that would make it really, really nice standing out there. Here, more space there, or move the car slightly to the right in the image. I know you want to show off the extra tire here, which has nice detail, and the back has really nice detail. But still, it's probably then better to go for a slightly off aspect ratio, just to make it a little wider to where the car is looking, to make it feel a bit more in place.
That one could really go for some secondary lighting for the wheels as well.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, they would really benefit from that. If there's a light source from the side here, that would really make these highlight nicely. We're going to see that in a bit there. That's a beautiful build. Not going to say much more about that. That works. I think this composition as well works quite well, despite this is an example where it quite works well because you have that artificial scene and it's placed there, and there's a lot of detail that keeps you within the image regardless of this looking out to the side and bottom. And there's still some space here. It makes me feel just ever so slightly uncomfortable, but the build is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
This one has a clear problem with this edge not being long enough. Is creating quite an uneasy feeling because this is an action shot. The car is leaving this direction. We see where it's coming from, but not where it's going. So I think this would be... Let's quickly try that out, if that makes as large a difference as I think it does. Oh, that problem again. This is the correct size. So we just extend it. Image, canvas size, plop it to there. Width goes to 2220. And now we just add a little bit of screen real estate. Oh, wow, that was pretty well done. That was almost good. So now I want to crop a little bit from the back, and there we go. All right. Now let's compare to that. You see the difference instantly, that this one feels wrong in comparison to this one, right? I think most would agree. But yes, let's continue on. That, by the way, is pretty awesome. F14 time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Is it
very
F14?
well shot too. Yeah,
it's F14. Yeah. This is too cut off in quite important places. Cars tend to drive on something, and that something tends to be quite important for cars. So maybe you wanted to crop out something that was not as nice to look at. But this is a really cool build that would benefit from
wheels.
Wheels, yes, exactly. And oh shit. Okay, here we got something.
This is a really hard trick to pull off, is if you have something in the foreground.
And this is not how to do it. Let me show you. Let me show you a little bit of a difference here. I think that's the correct size. Yep, yeah, it is. So first of all, this thing here is the brightest thing in the image. The brightest thing in the image instantly pulls the eyes to it and usually doesn't let them go that easily. And this points to nowhere. So that is an attention stealer. What can you do about it? Well, not really that much, but let me do one thing. Duplicate that one so that we get a before and after. All right, now I'm just modifying this. All right, let us just do a quick and dirty fill to it. All right, what you notice instantaneously is that there's way more focus on the car with this being darker. So now let's go into here, camera raw, and see what else is wrong with, because I think this is not a good choice for lighting for a red car. You've chosen a very warm lighting, and
against the brick wall.
yes, against a brick wall, but more importantly, with a red car. Warm lighting is already pretty red. So there is very little contrast in terms of color here. And you can make the color a little cooler, just a little bit. It usually doesn't look too good if you do it in post. You have to do it in the shot already. And if you go too far, then everything becomes weird. So just a little bit cooler. But also you see that this histogram up here is pretty much empty beyond the middle. That means you don't have highlights, or very few. And generally, the image is quite dark. So we can make it a little brighter. And then we probably want to lighten up the shadows a little bit to give you some more details in the shadows, to pull it out of the deep trenches that you have over there. And of course, selectively applying some clarity in this case works pretty well, I would think. Let's put on a little bit. Is that actually working? I think so. Yes, it is. All right, let's just check out if I've painted it all professionally over here. That is mask option. Oh, yes, beautiful mask there, Killrob. Perfect. So let's not overdo it, but something like this. All right, there you go. So now let's compare. Of course,
Very stark.
yeah, it's a pretty big difference. It's not perfect by any means, but I can't make it perfect with that basis. But the car itself pops a lot more in this instance. So that's what I wanted to show you there.
That one kind of had a fun, almost like a Miami Vice kind of effect to it, where it had sort of that sort of soft, fuzzy lighting all around it. So for certain eras of cars, like that is a very sort of 80s, 90s era car, that can kind of work in kind of a fun way. I wouldn't do it on a modern car, but that era is perfect for that kind of stuff.
I would say, multiple car shots are really hard to do. There's a lot to think about. It's cool that they all are pointing towards each other. That really helps. I think it's a little bit too close, but then again, probably not. You know what? It is not too close. It is not having enough bottom and top. If it would be extended slightly to the bottom and top, I think this one would look quite a bit better. It is beautiful cars in there. This shot works really well, but I think there's a bit too much space here. You probably want to have this one on a golden ratio. It is a little too close in the middle. Just cut off a few pixels there, like about this, and it will look even better. This is beautiful. Very artsy shot. These are also very artsy and well done. I can't really say much about the composition here because that is not the point here is that it is this composition and very specific look. It's more about the colors and contrasts more so than about the car. But I think the composition is very good for what this image is showing you. This looks like something that you put on your wall next to several others of these. And you have another one there, which also works beautifully in that regard. It's very artsy, so not that much that I can say about it, but well done there.
We have a question coming in from the field from Silverblade.
Yes, please.
Just let me unmute you here, and you can go ahead and ask your question. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so mine is more related to the photo scene, or like the scenery part of things, because that's something that I've actually also been doing myself. And over the time of like making them, I have realized like a lot of problems, let's say. For example, that usually scenes like really should be based off of how real life light would work, rather than trying to add fake things to make it seem like they have for example, the reflections that you can see in what was it? In the photo scenes that were really like bright and the shadow seemed a bit really soft. That was not made with real life in mind. Let's put it like that.
Right. Is it a problem with the skyboxes or the reflections?
So if it's really a problem with the reflections and lighting. So if you scroll up, because I have seen you mention about the lighting and I agreed. For example, yeah, those first 3 cars, like that's up from the lighting issue. That has been something that really bugged me, and it's I mean, it comes with learning. But
Yes, but you
I
can also spruce them up really nicely with the new props that we have. So there is a way
that is
around
true.
it.
Yeah, but it's ideal that they are already good like from the start.
Oh
of-
yeah, I agree. They should be as good as possible from the start because not everyone can be asked to put in extra lights and whatnot because that is quite a hassle. But
Also,
yes,
the shadows are like really unrealistic. That's also like a problem that there's in some shots, as well as like ambient occlusion. That comes like really difficult with cars, like in real time graphics. Ray tracing does help with that, but most of the time it's like faked.
Hmm.
So it's also a question of getting a really good shot where the car looks like it has an actual shadow, um, rather than it seeming like there's something missing.
yes,
That's
yeah,
what's
shadows are very important. Yes, I agree. Yes, thank you. I quite like this one, although I think the split between wall and car is a little bit too much in favor of wall. Um, this is not the most interesting part of the shot, and if we if we crop this a little bit, just try it out. Oh, I opened up the wrong one. Let's just copy this, paste it in. Here we go. There. All right. Let's see what we can do. We are going to shift the image over by again canvas size, and we add. We don't have to add that much. Let's do 200 pixels. That's probably more than enough. We want to add them to that side, and now just fill it in, and then recrop the image. There. Oh, that kind of worked. And now I'm going to recrop this one to the normal size. There. All right. So now let's compare. View this one or this one. Which one seems more natural and more effectful? I would say that this one completes that task better because more focuses on the actual car while still having this awesome effect that you were going for, which is close to the wall, showing the speed. Having close by objects really helps the feel of speed, and that's very nicely done. But I think just having this little bit of extra space there gets you overall a better effect than this, because here I don't know if the wall is the main thing to look at or the car. Well, that's not true, but it is more in favor of the wall than I would want it to be. All right, here we continue. Let's take a quick look at some. Oh, that is some harsh lighting that is on this black car. You have some. Is this some kind of lens flare effect that is going on?
That looks. I don't think that's lens flare. I think that's actually either like it's probably either the dirt or the chromatic aberration effect just really turned up in automation. And yeah, the lighting in that scene it's very harsh. It's good for some things, not necessarily for this one. This is definitely a shot that I think would benefit from um, certainly some more. This tends to be what happens when it's on sort of lower non-ray tracing settings.
Right, yeah. This might look amazing on ray tracing, actually.
Oh, I think it'd be stunning on ray tracing.
Yeah. All right, let's move forward. Here we have obviously the problem of the edge, the placement of the car. Even if you want to show off the butt of the car, you don't have to place the butt right in the middle of the image and have the front dangling almost out of the image. That is not required. It can be further along. You can place, like, if you place this edge of the car on the further away golden ratio, like even here, and leave some more space over there. Probably also want to turn the wheels in the other direction. But then that means a car should go even further away. So if you place it over there and turn the wheels the other direction, have some nice light from the side, because this is also a little dull looking, then that would look really awesome. All right, let's continue on. tanks. Here, that is
That's a very nicely composed shot. The lighting is a
Yeah.
little bit.
Exactly. The car is really nice, by the way. I would
Yes,
say the
fantastic.
lighting is not showing off the car really well because it's also, again, a touch too warm. But the lighting overall, like the light part of the light, not the color of the light, is really good. And I would like to have a little bit more space, just a tiny sliver more to the left and bottom. But otherwise, this is beautifully filling the frame. And I think it is a classic type of car shot that is kind of documentary, showing off all the details of the car as much as possible with the frame that you have. So it's not an artsy shot. It is not a cool shot. It's just a shot that really shows off the car really well. And that's good. Just a tiny bit more to the sides, maybe slightly less warmth in the light, because it makes the rest of the picture too close to the main color of the car. So a bit more hue contrast would probably benefit it. Not much. A slightly yellow light is good, even for red cars, but this is maybe a little too far.
So I should mention that if you're submitting cars to the Face of the Update challenge, this is the kind of image we'd want to see. You know, a very documentary type of image that really shows off the features of the car and sort of a really nice angle of it. Because the prejudging is going to be done based on the images that you're submitting. And if it's not a particularly nice looking image, you might not get selected for the finals.
And then if you are in the finals and we deem your shot to be a little bit on the this could be better side, then we are likely going to give that a try ourselves and see if we can make something out of that. So, but your first impression shot needs to be up there for us to even bother. So yes, tanks. Well, this one would benefit from some beauty lighting. That's my comment. Also, I want to see what this thing is targeting. Yeah. So again, bit more space there maybe, but this is cool build. This one too. And here we have a real life composite. Pretty good for real life composite. This looks a little muddy, this section of the car.
The more reflections, I think, would have benefited this. The car looks a little bit flat, but otherwise it's very well composited. I like the light effect on the reflector there. That kind of adds a little bit of pop to it.
So that's another one where you can cheat a little. Oh, this is tiny. This is a very easy clarify wins the day shot. So just going to paint that on. Yeah. So there we get a lot more pop towards the side and reflection. Make it slightly brighter. Something like this.
Yeah, I think that makes it look a lot more in place and a lot more natural.
And the agony, it is true. Yes, this is hard. This is proper tough. This one,
very moody,
and not bad. It has the right tendencies here. I would say the shadows are too dark. It's it could, even if it's moody, it can always still show nicely the details in the shadows, or should be. What I don't like is this light kind of sticking out of its arse. That is looking a little weird. Otherwise, the lights are more framing than anything else. As you see here, they're going around the car here. They're building this kind of frame here, even though this is a little too close to it, and would move over the car ever so slightly towards the left. And then this one is sticking out of its arse, which doesn't look good. If this was kind of horizontal there, I know you can't set that because it's part of the photo scene, I believe. Is that correct? It's part of the photo scene, right?
I believe so.
Yes. So if that one was horizontal there, then that would have been a beautiful frame. That brings me to the point that if you are taking pictures of cars where you have a landscape around or you have a scenery around, try to find places which have a natural frame for the car to be in. That usually amplifies the effect of the car popping. And this has almost done it, but not quite. This one, that's a cool shot, but it makes me really uncomfortable that it's, again, why is it there and not here? Maybe because the ground here looks really interesting. And yeah, you wouldn't be seeing the taillights as nicely because the angle changes as you move it closer. I think that would be worth the compromise to make the 2D composition a little better. Because otherwise, this is a beautiful build with the engine bay being visible and stuff. It's cool stuff.
Something I should point out just back on that image there, and it's notice the front wheel, how it's turned so that the wheel faces, like the actual face of the wheel is facing the picture. That's really important. If you're gonna, it not only does it lend sort of a character of action to the shot, having the wheels turned in the car instead of just having them straight on. If you have the wheel turned the other direction, all you see is just the great big black mass of the tire, and that's not a particularly appealing look. So it's very important that if you're going to do that, you have to have the face of the wheel turned towards the shot.
Then we have a nice one here, looking to the sunset on the water. Jesus car.
This one kind of breaks the rules a little bit, but does so in kind of a neat way.
Yeah, I agree. That all kind of works. I would say that it would have benefited ever so slightly from a slight turned wheel at the front. Not much, not the full kind of, oh, look at me, stance attitude kind of thing, but just a little bit so that it's not just a straight line, although it makes it look very settled this way. A tiny bit further into the image, I think would have been fine. A little slightly more space here, because there are some nice details with the reflections for the car. And what I think would benefit this car, let me try if this is even possible. If we can make it pop a little bit more. Now, it's not the image. Photoshop. Okay. So we're going to go in here, try to make it a little brighter. I think this would have benefited from an extra light source that just lights up the sides a bit more, because the car is extremely dark. So I'm going to paint on it. Just add a little bit to it here. Not in the reflection, of course, because there we have too much detail already. But yeah, it doesn't really come out that way. Yeah, so this is, of course, the wrong kind of effect because it's not properly lit, but you see that if this was showing this amount of color, if we just do the squint test, this would look a lot better than without this change. Like, look at this difference. Of course, this is not properly made. I say if it was shot that way with more color, it would benefit the image overall quite drastically. Also, just adding a little bit of space there. Again, canvas size, move it over there. Have just a tiny bit of space extra. And like this. Shift F5. And there you go. Yeah, that looks more settled. I think that's pretty solid. Or rather, pretty amazing. Great shot. A quick note about this one. Way too busy. You can't even see the cars. It is a really cool shot, but I don't see the cars in it because the scenery is so stark. It's just blowing away the cars that are in it. And it's a nicely designed car. And also the cars are placed really well. But the lighting is just brutal in this one, which is kind of the point of the scene, to make for such a cool shot. But it's bad at showing off the car, but it is a cool picture.
We had a question come in from the field here from LS Swapped RX7, and the question is, I've already answered it in the text, but what is that Photoshop color graph in that I don't know the art history term? I think he's referring to the histogram, specifically.
The histogram that is in... Let me show you again. You mean this one on top here?
Yeah, I think that's the one there.
Yeah. So what this one is showing is a list of pixel brightnesses. And then this one says that if the pixel is primarily red, what brightness does it have? The brightness is on the X scale, and the amount of pixels that have that brightness and color are on the Y-axis. So what we can see in this one is that there are many pixels that are blue, which are very dark, and there are many pixels that are red, that are very bright. Oh, I wonder which ones those are. And you can see by the distribution how well how proper your exposure is, and so on. It can be very effective to be used, or very illustrative to use this to determine how much exposure you should add or subtract. All right, let's take a look at this. Is this an automation? I doubt it, because we don't have BeamNG. Yeah, we don't have BeamNG containers in automation now. This one has the problem of it being quite wide angle for a quite long car, which makes it stretch a lot. And apart from that, of course, we have this being really dark. It doesn't pop against the backdrop. And the container and BeamNG becomes the primary focus here. This is the first thing that I see in the image. So this one really needs some better lighting on it. And it's probably hard to do in BeamNG, but quite easy to do in automation once we get to that. And I think before continuing on here, we might make that happen, because it's already 1 hour and 30 minutes into this workshop, and we still haven't talked about those tools that are so amazing in automation. So let's do that, and I shall share my screen, and then we return afterwards to these images after you've seen that. And this should be pretty easy to show off, because I've prepared a photo scene that crashes on me. No, that was another one. There's a loading screen, that car you've seen before, and that is the one that we're going to use in the photo scene. So let's load it in, and photo scene, and I can make the game slightly larger so that you actually see what's going on.
I said, I see you like to name your cars just like I do. It's all just Model 1, Model
Yeah,
2, Model 3.
of course. Of course, yes. For testing purposes only, of course. This is absolutely atrocious lighting, in case you didn't know. Do you find this appealing? I hope the answer is no, because it is gray on gray on white on gray, and some black in it, and it's just blah. So there are ways to make this slightly better. We are in this studio scene. Let's just look around a little bit. We have a skybox. Okay, that's nice. We have some diffusers over here that supposedly are producing some light, but I can't see them on the car necessarily. Now, let me add something to this scene. We go in here. We have scene, level, props, and in this section of props, what you have down here is basic lights. Spotlight and point light. Those are extremely powerful, and I shall show you with something I've prepared, and then we can play around with those. So we have studio with lights. Let's load the entire preset. Okay, I think that looks slightly better. Let's look around. That's the same scene. What have I done? Do you see that little thing up there? That's my light. And do you see that? Where is it? There. There's the other one. Click it. There's another spotlight. And there you have the car. This is with ray tracing on. That's why it's. The other one was, I think, was the other one with ray tracing on as well. But let's turn them off. These are popping up in the props list on top. So they are very easy to edit, even though you have the camera focused on the car. So let me show you with and without. And that will, of course, both then be with ray tracing turned on, so that it's a fair comparison. So we had a light intensity of 200 there for the first light. Ooh, you can see that difference there already. And everything is going a little slow. I hope the video encoding is not dying on me. And we turn that one down to 0 as well.
Video is still very clear.
Okay,
this is
very
a bit
good.
Slow.
Yeah, but that is my computer that's slow. So that is the car without that additional lighting. I think you would all agree that that is an amazing difference. Let's load the level preset again. That is Studio with Lights. There, that's with the lights on. So, why does this work so well? Well, it's just normal spotlights. What you can do with them is determine both brightness as well as the radius of the spotlight, its fall off. You can even make it such that it reaches the car but doesn't reach anything behind it. So if we select one of these, you can also see that we can add color to it. That is what I've done here in the front, and maybe gone overboard a bit because that was a little too yellowish. Can make it even golden. You can add red lights, red, blue, whatever. Can do whatever you like and determine the light intensity. And of course, you can find settings that make for really nice shots. Source radius can be determined. That is basically how large that source of light is. The light radius is the range of the light, so that you can set it so that it just reaches the front of the car, but not the sides or not behind the car to not illuminate the rest of the scenery. And you can enable shadow casting as well. These are ray traced shadows for those lights, and that instantly makes the whole thing look a lot more realistic. So this is a really powerful tool for you, and I wanted to show you just briefly without having let's turn ray tracing off real quick because this is so damn slow. Okay, thanks. So now, we're flying. Let me show you how to set these up, because that might be illustrative, and I found out today while I was testing that for the first time. So you have those lights selected. And what you can do in the settings is to change them to scene props. There we have that. Change the angle to be pretty much a spotlight, as spotty as you want. So we go there. We see, okay, that is the center of illumination on the car. So I'm going to make that even smaller, like this. This is our point of focus. Once you have found that and you are happy with this, because you can move that around awkwardly, usually, by using these. So I want to move it further this way. Was that good? Yeah, now it's in the middle of the car, right? Maybe I want to have it on the left of the car. So maybe like this? Yeah, that was pretty decent. Where's the damn light? Where's my ladder? And of course, all the normal options apply. Like you can tilt them and whatnot. So now it points further down. Now it points to down there. Once you are satisfied with the light, you can then adjust its angle again so that it becomes the lighting that you want to have. Okay, something like this maybe. And then just get into place. And once you feel ready, you can turn on the ray tracing again. And there we go. All right. Needs to settle first. Oh, this is so slow. So slow. But it looks amazing. Yeah. Look at that. And again, let's turn them off. Let's turn them off once more. And just see the difference. Because that is something that I think almost all of you have missed so far. That we have that in the game now. And the difference is amazing in terms of what you can do with it. So that is one of them. Let's turn off the other one as well. This is a little hard, sorry. 2004, and you can go beyond the slider as well. Oh, wow, what a difference. Here you go. Boring car. The other one was nicely lit. So, now without having ray tracing on, let's go back here to you and talk about what you can do with it. One thing that you see quite commonly is that in a photo scene, like in a real life photo scene, where people are taking pictures of cars, they always have supporting lights around them. Usually quite diffuse ones, at a little bit of a distance away, or really powerful flashes inside. So that makes it such that you can make the car pop whatever environment you are in, even in broad daylight. You can make the car really bright and the surroundings much darker by just focusing light on the car. And you lower your exposure in automation to compensate for that. And that way you can reach some really nice results. And let me see if I have an example of this somewhere. Yes, I do. All right, let me show you one example right here. This is the mud flat scene where I've brought my lighting with me. It's not a well-composed shot because it wanted to crash on me, but I got this one beforehand. And you see that even though this would be completely dull lighting otherwise, this car is nicely lit now. It's not optimal, but by any means. I haven't moved around the lights, not colored them and nothing. But you can really make the car pop. And now let's look at two shots here. So this one, this is how it comes out of automation with ray tracing. And if you use additional lights, that's the effect that I'm talking about here, you can make the car pop and make the surroundings seem darker. Something like this. That is just some extra lights on there. Like those lights that I've been talking about here and that I've shown you. So you can... I'm not saying that this is a much better effect. I quite like this image better. But this is something that you can do, that you now have in your toolbox on any photo scene. And that is really powerful. All right, I think with that, if Mr. Chips doesn't have anything else to add to that, I think we can continue.
We had a question come in here that was basically, what could I do if ray tracing is absolutely not an option for me? Well, to answer that,
yeah.
It should still, a lot of the lighting effects should still work without ray tracing. I mean, obviously you won't get the really sharp shadows and whatnot, but you'll still get probably 80% of the effect. Maybe we could demonstrate that again, Rob, if you've still got automation going.
You can definitely get pretty far with just those lights being added. I think the difference between ray tracing on and off and having no lights and having lights in there is about the same distance. So you will improve your images by just having those lights in there as much as turning on ray tracing would do. Of course, then on top of that, turning on ray tracing would go even further. But yeah, I think that it's perfectly fair to say that if we keep it with without ray tracing, and just load into that, and then I turn ray tracing off because it will be on in that. So camera, ray tracing, preset off. This still does look amazing compared to props. I just go down here and turn that one off. Like you see instant massive difference there. And here as well. Come on. There. And, where is it? Intensity. There. Like, look at it. This is not good. It was much better with the lights on. So, yeah. You can get quite far, even without ray tracing. This is without ray tracing. So there's not really an excuse to not use those lights now if you want to have a good shot.
Yeah, I think that answers the question. And the other question just came up is that, is there a way you can position the lights? And the answer to that is yes, you can move them around just like any other prop or any car in the photo scene.
All on all the axes, and just as I've shown you there, you can move them around, tilt them, whatever you like, and change all the other settings for them. And you can have as many as you like, as long as your system doesn't die. So yes. So this image, take this to automation, put the lights around. Probably this one would benefit from having 3 different separate ones. And this car would pop and be really pretty. That is my comment for most of these car shots in here for the first one. That's quite nice. All right. Should we continue here, Mr. Chips?
Yep. We got a couple more questions come in though. So the first question is, can we only use the light props for lighting?
What other things would you use them for?
Theoretically, I'd like to imagine other car headlights and maybe some of the new neons coming around.
You can use them as car headlights, yeah, for sure, but only in the photo scene. So you can place a spotlight in there, in the in the car headlights, which is pointing correctly so that you get correct illumination within the photo scene from the car headlights. That is perfectly something that you can do, yeah, definitely.
Oh, I think it was mostly talking about using the car itself without having to do that, but yeah, that's a.
Well, the next question is actually more of a suggestion from Speedy Boy, and that is it a good idea to implement a preview ray into the lighting props?
Yeah, that
basically
is
just
already done. Yep, it's already done.
Okay.
It's implemented. I think it is in our dev versions, but not yet out in public. So the way it will work is that you have a little camera preview screen, and then you can be completely without ray tracing being on and just move about, do all the settings and stuff, and you have a little preview that is just showing what the camera currently sees, your photo camera currently sees, while you are moving about freely and don't have to move that camera. And you can just position things correctly and always have a little screen in screen which shows you what the camera sees. And then once you push the photo button, it turns on ray tracing for you if you have that set up, and just briefly turns all that on, maximum quality, takes the photo, shuts all of that off again, and then you can go. So that is, yes, definitely a yes. That is very handy. I haven't tried it out myself yet, but Isaac has experimented with it, and it works really well, he said. So I'm looking forward to getting that feature.
So the question also came in is an RTX card required for automation ray tracing? And the answer is no, it is not, but you still need a relatively modern video card for that.
Yes.
As the discussion is talking about, you basically need a minimum of a GT or the GeForce 2060, or I believe on the AMD side, anything up from the 5700, like the 5000 series and 6000 series can do it. I mean, I have a 6000 series AMD card and it works passably because we actually don't use the NVIDIA RTX. We actually use the built-in ray tracing from Unreal Engine.
I think this is a good example of a really nicely framed setup for a car, but then this car needs extra lighting because it's just not popping. It's kind of disappearing in the otherwise nicely framed with the bridge bow and nicely placed. It has more space here, the light coming down there and everything is kind of beautiful, but yeah, you need to make this one really pop and have its own light on it. And now you know how to do that. And then this picture would be amazing, I think. If you retake this and with proper lighting set up, whew, that will be quite hot. And this one, I want to point out something. This is a quite modern style of photography that you're going for here, which is like photograph into the sun. That is something that for the longest time wasn't really possible with older equipment. Nowadays it can be done. It's a nice effect, if not overdone. And it gives a nice feel to the image, a nice warm feel. And I think you're hammering that home here. I think it would benefit from even a little bit of better lighting on the rear here. The front seems to be fine, actually, in terms of detail and what comes out of it. But I think it would benefit from one extra light in here. Probably from slightly behind the car and from this side, from the right-hand side. I think that would look really stunning then. I like the effect overall to take a photo into the sun. It is challenging in reality as it is in automation as well. And then we have Riley here, and even though it doesn't have any previews, I did download some images, I believe.
So while you're doing that, Rob, I should actually just make a bit of a correction here, is that only the 6000 series AMD cards can do any kind of ray tracing. All the previous ones are not able to do that. So a bit of a misspeak on my part, and I apologize for that.
So let's open it up. There you go. That is a fantastic image, I would say. Do you agree? I mean, this is very striking. It's very striking. It all feels in place. Love the little text on there. It's composed like a poster that you would get on a car, like a beauty shot. And the feel of speed in this one is spot on. I love it. Also, just a cameo mention. Nice, probably coincidental, but quite nice. There's some plant here, which is exactly on the golden ratio between car and frame edge, and that it's just something I noticed there. But very nicely done. I think with prior knowledge of what we just had with the lights, you could have made this even a tick better with lighting the car slightly better. Doesn't need much, but ever so slightly better, because right now the most of what you see here are just the reflections in the car, which are adding details that are not quite the car, but just scenery. It is a beautiful shot.
The aspect ratio really helps give it a sense of speed as well. Like the ultra wide makes it really. That's something else that really is a good idea to play around with, is the aspect ratios of the images you take. You know, as that one does, making it really wide gives a real strong sense of motion.
And this one looks like it is suffering from noise from ray tracing. Really good shot, though. I mean, this is... I don't think you can do much better in terms of composition here.
That's pretty much perfect to my eye.
Yeah, it is the noise that is off-putting, and there's a denoising option in there. Maybe your card explodes when you turn those on or something. I don't know, but it would certainly benefit from it. And usually, in the some of the previous stuff, I've been saying that you should be careful with too warm lighting if your car is red. This one is taking it to an extreme where that becomes a feature of the image. Like, this is so much, while the car still pops because there's good lighting on it, there's lots of details in it, the car still pops, but you still have a very red-orange theme image, and I think that works really well.
So we've actually got a question in here from Riley. Let me just get you unmuted here, Riley, and you can go ahead.
Hi, yes, the very red image, the second one you pulled
yep.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the denoising on that is with it all turned on and everything.
All right.
But it's I don't know what happened. Maybe my game bugged or something. But it looked like it kind of turned it all off when it took the photo, because it wasn't looking like that on my screen. But,
okay. That could be.
Yes.
Something must have gone weird there. Haven't seen it that noisy with those options turned on.
I think what might have happened here is that Discord compression might have got you here.
You think so?
So, yeah, when you upload the image on Discord, even if it's, well, even in this case, since it kind of didn't upload properly, Discord will actually automatically recompress the images just to really shrink them down a bit. And it can have some really negative effects especially on noise and stuff. So, yeah, I think that maybe what have happened here.
This is an example of a very nicely framed one. And this is also yours, Riley. So I really, really like the framing. The composition is spot on. The placement in the scenery is great. I don't think the car pops quite enough because it's just ever so slightly darker than the road underneath it. And also, again, some noise problems. This almost looks like it has been raining on it. So in this case, it kind of works. I don't know if that was deliberate or not, but it does look great. I wonder if this would no, turning lights on would probably steal too much attention away. But yeah, beautiful detail in this. This one has lights turned on. This is a very wide aspect ratio car that doesn't like to be placed in a normal aspect ratio image, I would say. If you were to give this one more breathing room, it would very much benefit the photo, yeah. Other than that, I think it's pretty good. I like the lighting effect that you have on here on the side. Looks quite realistic for what lighting effect you would get. Although this down here looks quite devoid of detail. I don't know if that would be what you would be seeing in this kind of scene, if it's a busy road, or, well, not so busy road, but you would see the other side of the houses there or something. So yeah, the reflections here a little too flat maybe, and aspect ratio. Let this one breathe. Let this have a bit more space towards the right and a little bit more to the left, but only a little bit more to the left. And I think that would make it better. And I think it's a good photo.
Got a very vintage feel to it, very 60s and 70s. They loved having lighting like that, especially in the car ads that they made at the time.
Ah, right.
It has the right period feel.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yes, it certainly feels authentic. And back then they didn't have automation studio lights that you could move around. Not as much, at least. Of course, they did use flashes and whatnot, but it was less common. It was not the main staple of their photography back then. So let's take a look at this little fella. This one is a very narrow aspect ratio car, and as you can see, this fits nicely in the frame. It feels natural that way. Ever so slightly more zoomed out because it's in motion. It's obviously in motion. Very, very well done to put a person in there for scale. This makes it come alive. I noticed the person much later, but this is one of those things with great images, with great photos. Not saying that this is necessarily superb, super great, because you could do a lot more with lighting in this one, but the composition is good. Having the person in there is this little extra detail that you see after a while after looking at the image. And if you can find more interesting details, the more you look at the image, the better the feel you get from it overall. And it just stays interesting that way. And that's well done. You can see here the problem of you not getting speed blur through refractions. That is a problem with the renderer. I don't think that can be fixed, but
Yeah, that's a limitation for the game engine, unfortunately.
yes, and one thing that you can do is, if you wanted to, if you have Photoshop and more time, is to take the picture without the car in it, with the exact same framing, and then put the car in it, but also with the speed effects. Then you can composite that part in that is blurred. That would work. So, yes, and then we have... very dark. Very dark, in need of lights. I know this is kind of what you were going for, like this lighting, dark lighting and stuff, but I think this is too dark. This is what Mr. Chips was saying a little bit about a teaser shot. The dark automotive industry teaser shot. And it's not showing off the car well. It's showing off its butt pretty well, yeah, with the nice lighting and stuff and carbon fiber, but that's it. We've already talked about this one. It was too little car in a beautiful scenery shot. That's a neat, artsy approach. It's a cool shot. It's not one that shows off the cars well, of course, but I like the creativity of that and the color theme that you went for here as well. What do we see here? Yo, automation players, you have heard it 1,000 times by now. What is the problem with this image? We see where it is coming from, but not where it is going. Yeah, we need more space there. And it's also driving off to the upper left, so it's also top that is a problem. Slightly different here. One thing that we haven't talked about much, I briefly mentioned it. Dutch angle done right, I believe, in this one. This is enough angle to make it really obvious that this was a stylistic choice. What benefits you get from it is that you usually end up in a situation where you get pretty defined diagonals for your image. And this one makes use of that nicely, but runs into the issue of, well, the general composition being too far into the direction of travel. And here we have some documentary shots. That is very flat lighting on the car. Yeah, it doesn't quite look correct in place either. Is this the overcast setting for the London photo scene? I think they're just adding some of those lights that we talked about would make it pop more. But then, if it's about the car, you would want the car to be larger in this image. It's very small compared to the rest. So this more looks like a documentary shot, but then there's nothing happening here. There's no connection to anything really. So it doesn't quite work as a documentary shot. It doesn't work as a pure car shot because of the flat lighting. So if you work on the lighting and get a little closer, I think this would be really nice because the car's good looking. Interior shots, this looks like a pretty solid one.
This is one that I wanted to mention, is that one of the big issues with interior shots is a lot of cars have dark interiors. And if you have, in this one, the problem is everything that's going on outside the car is really kind of drawing your attention out of the car, which is not really what the intention is. So what you have to do is actually find a background that's a little bit quieter than you'd normally use for any other photo shot, and then play around with some of the prop lighting to make the interior stand out quite a bit more.
Ah, yeah. That would be something to use inside the cars as well. Those new lights. That one is cute. Yeah, you can see that now that you've seen the same photo scene with my car there, you can see that you can do so much more here with the lighting. Compositionally, spot on. I love it. With the framing of the light stand and the diffuse box, it's beautiful. I think it's great composition, but actual lighting needs to be way better to make this a true stunning image.
Yeah, I really like the inclusion of the light box in that one because it gives it kind of a behind the scenes feel to it.
Yeah,
Kinda,
exactly. Makes it feel in place. A lot more in
It
place.
does.
Yeah. That's a cute build. Dutch angle, properly used. I would give him a little bit more space to the right. Some more image there without cropping it off. So because the general direction is to the right, and this little fella here is falling off a bit, but not too much because that would drop him off the golden ratio as well. You have the main focal point here, and if you take this spot as a marker, this edge as a marker, you want to extend the image so far that this one is on the golden ratio. And that's not that much, basically to here. All right, let's continue on. I love to take this kind of effect shot in landscape as well. If you have a really nice, calm day at a lake, you can do some pretty weird stuff with it. Pretty good. Here it's difficult to say. Here it is, the actual reflection would be a little bit darker, I believe, because some of the light would be lost. And that would remove some of the effect, so I'm not sure if this is good or bad. But I like the creativity of just turning it around in terms of automation. You don't see that all that often. That's cool. Otherwise, reasonably well composed. I would probably, place it a little bit further to the left, because it's headed this way. It's more space here at the behind than it is there, which feels slightly off. This is very nice natural light. Really nicely
That's
shot.
also not automation.
Yeah, that's very clearly a Ford GT in, I think they said Gran Turismo? Or Need for Speed, one of them.
No, we don't. I have never seen that photo.
They stated Forza.
Okay, but let's talk about that real quick. That is good natural lighting that you see here. One thing to take into account is that you want to have good enough detail in the shadow areas. This is on the edge. This probably should be lit a little bit better with a diffuse light. Also, what you do want to avoid is this down here. The car would probably not be standing on its camber like this. So if that happens, move down the car manually slightly into the asphalt if that happens on automation.
Or the suspension on that corner.
Yes, exactly. But this looks like a standing still shot, doesn't it? Or almost standing still, yeah. Some weird ass builds here.
The first car is from an anime, and it's the Trans Am 20,000.
Okay. It's a cool build. I like it.
Very cool build, very faithful.
Yeah, that's some creative stuff, all right. That's funny. And this one very much benefits from extra lighting. This is just not popping enough, and the build deserves it. So get on that. Very, very nice old style photography shot. I think this is done well. Also with the composition, even because they were a little weird back then, sometimes. And this nicely catches that feel, that old feel. It doesn't show off the car as well as it could, but I still think it's a brilliant shot overall. If you wanted to frame it a little differently, it would be kind of from here and this, and then include space down to here and there, and that would be kind of where you would be going with your shot to frame it nicely. But it's beautiful. The lighting is good because it looks so authentic. Also with the haze and all the effects later, it's pretty cool. And here we have a real life composited one. Because I don't think we have. That's Monza, right? That's the Monza speedodrome or whatever it's called. The yellow tends to be a problem because it pops a lot in yellow light and oversaturates. Very hard to control. So maybe I would have chosen a different color, although it seems like you went for a yellow color theme, which also is pretty cool. It's looking very much out of the shot, though. That's, I think, placed closer to here. I know if it's composited into a real life thing, then that is hard to do, but probably would have placed it more to this side of the image. This one is a composite error, because this is a pretty large toy car you have there, good sir. You can clearly see that this part of the image and the water splash is just a completely different scale to a real-life car. So this is just a pretty large toy car. It's a great contrast from a color palette point of view to the scenery. So that's really well chosen, and the build is good. The lighting on the sides is nice. It highlights some of the features there. So great shot overall. Just the compositing is weird. And also the placement in the frame makes it even more toy-like as a feel, because this doesn't seem to be the main focus because it's so shoved to the side and doesn't have anywhere to go at the bottom either.
I think that one is mostly just a bit of a questionable source for the compositing image, because it kind of makes you wonder what the original image, what they were actually thinking and doing with that, because otherwise, like, technically it's quite well done, but apart from the things you pointed out, but the original source is a little weird. And that's something you have to be aware of when you're doing a composite, is give the original source a little bit of thought too, because sometimes they get into some real uncanny valley stuff, especially nowadays, where a lot of images you see of cars being posted, in car ads or on manufacturers' websites are actually not real.
Another composite here. Very difficult to get the speed feel right, and you see some artifacts there and so on. But overall, well done. But again, yes, I know this was probably taken this way originally. I would say that to the original image as well. I don't like the composition of it, because it is going completely out of the wrong side of the frame. It makes it feel unsettled. If that is what the intent is, then that is well done. If it's not, if it's supposed to show off the car as a powerful, controllable thing, then that is not a good thing. Because as soon as you make the viewer feel uneasy with the composition, the viewer automatically transports that to a characteristic of what the photo is about, which is the car. So should the car feel uneasy, unstable, and horrifying to drive? Yes or no? I don't know. So I wouldn't agree with this composition, which was obviously also in the original of that thing here that is being taken on. But yes, just saying there. This one, Beautiful artsy image. Love it. Although, again, composition probably could be better, but this is so unique that it kind of works. The silhouette is working beautifully there.
Feels like an Instagram story.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Here we have a very kind of documentary style shot of a car that would be in a car magazine or something. Very muted lighting, not trying to be overly in your face, but nuanced and everything. I quite like it. I would again point out that you probably want to switch around the space here and the space there. Want to have a little bit more to the front. But overall, I quite like the feel of this. This is working pretty well. Any comments there, Mr. Chips?
Sorry, my attention was just elsewhere. That's actually really nice. I quite like the fact that it shows the profile of the car very nicely. The lighting is very good. And the other thing that's kind of nice too is the focal length is such that it makes the car, it gives it kind of a 2D feel almost like you're looking at someone actually drawing it on a background or like a technical drawing.
And that is also created by the fact that this seems to be a camera which is pretty far away and very much the focal length is quite high. That creates a flatter image of a car. If you zoom out, then that makes it go more round and more dynamic. If you zoom in, it becomes flatter. And that flatness makes a very, like this, a planar image of it. And that is very good for showing accurate silhouettes and stuff like this. This is very well used in this case. And also the aperture is chosen. That is what Mr. Chips also was pointing at there, is chosen such that it's really, with the background being the way it is, that perfectly fits. Like everything is sharp, you can see everything nicely, but that doesn't make the background distract from the car because there is no distracting background. It's all very nicely done.
We have a question actually from the creator of that image. Go ahead, INU.
Hi, it's Inu. Yeah, I guess it's not really that important, but composition-wise, I just realized that the focus of the car is slightly off-center, like it's towards the right. That was completely unintentional. I wasn't paying attention to how much space the car was taking up, and it was supposed to be centered.
Oh, right. Okay, so you wanted to have the distance be equal. Still, the comments then would apply to have it probably either centered, which would make it very technical drawing style, because there they don't care about composition, but about accuracy. So that would be an option, yes. But otherwise, lower distance here compared to there. Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I guess this was on an older version of the game, so a very old photo. That was when the interface to the right, where you could adjust your settings and all, that was kind of in the way, and I guess I didn't find a way to cover that up, so that kind of messed up the composition a little.
Okay, well, fair enough. It's still a really good shot. And this one is as well. What I would point out here is that you create a very strong natural framing, but then kind of throw away that framing, because this dark part here is merging with the car. If you had moved the car, like in this image, a few centimeters further to the right, you would have had a perfect natural frame. So this is a massive wasted opportunity, because otherwise this shot is amazing.
Yeah.
And let's take a look at this one. This is also an amazing build. I assume that's the same car as no, is it? Is it the same car as this one? No, it's a different one. No.
No, the side strike's way different.
Yeah. Yes, right. That's way different. The angle works really well. The scenery works really well. It's a really cool build. But this thing in the foreground, I think you had, I think the next image you had something, or was it, no, not in this next one. Anyway, this is a foreground element that is taking because it is the viewer is going into this image from left to right, this is the first thing you see, and it's taking a lot of screen real estate. It doesn't give you a good direction pointing to the car or anything. So I think this is slightly in the way. I wouldn't have a touch of it would have been okay, because that adds to the framing. It's a natural framing. You have it on the other side. You see this pillar that kind of builds a kind of frame around the image. And you have also this line down here. I don't know what it is, a shadow or something. That's also kind of a framing. But this one here is a little too much. But otherwise, it's beautiful. This one I would point out is a shot that is difficult to take. And I think you've succeeded pretty well with it. It is in motion from behind and from the top. And in these, naturally, as you have been hearing all about it already for today, for most of today, is a little bit more space in the direction of movement. Would make it feel more settled and more in place. Otherwise, I think it's well shot. And I would be using some of our new lights for the photo scene to light up the details in the back a little bit more. Not so that you see, oh, there's a fat big light that is shining on it, but rather so that you can pick out the details better. And otherwise, the reflections and stuff are working well, and the lights too. So well done there.
Something to point out on that with regards to the lighting is that when the dual camera comes in, one of the things Isaac has done is he's actually put a flashlight on the camera as well, so you can actually have that directly shine right into the image. So that'll be coming along at some point.
I hope you don't mind if I add in a suggestion.
Please go ahead.
So there's this program called Source Filmmaker. It's technically used for animation, but it can be used for a lot of things as well, like making renders and stuff like that. And there's a feature where you can add lights into your scene, and you can actually, if you drag and drop the light from the hierarchy, like this list of things that are in the scene currently, if you drag and drop that into the viewpoint, then you can actually take control of that light and move it around as if it was the camera. And I think something like that would be very useful in automation. I don't think it should be too difficult.
That is pretty similar to what we have implemented in the dev version, where that light that is, or the flashlight of the camera, is also just a spotlight, which moves in relation to the camera. So it's bound to the camera plane, and you can adjust its position separate from, like with an offset. But basically the same controls as we have for the other spotlights. So you can really make it the way you want, customize it fully. But it does, I think it follows around in the plane of the camera. Yeah, it's at least a little bit similar. But yeah, I think you mean you want to possess objects basically, right? And then be able to move them around and look as if you are in that object, and then just set it up, move to where you want to be, where it should be looking, and then can set it up. I think that is also something that could be done. That is nicely composed. The lighting is extremely questionable. I don't see the car really. It's just black and white, and then a really nicely lit tire. and weird. But yes, this would really benefit from better photo scene lighting, and definitely additional lighting. Because this, yeah, the bonnet just being completely white is not helping this either. But otherwise, like the composition, spot on. This is exactly how I would position this car in the image. Also showing off the wheels. With this harsh lighting already being there, you could even try to put on the lights if you wanted to. But, this is pretty. That's pretty well shot. I would say, again, some additional lights would help to also diminish the impact of the existing photo scene lighting, which is a little harsh here on the reflections. if you add light, other parts of light, and you can, in general, lower the exposure, then you can get rid of some of those effects from those lights. But otherwise, yeah, it is looking pretty good. Difficult to shoot. Again, additional lights, especially in these kinds of light settings where you have very strong directional natural light, is always great to add some additional lights. This one doesn't have any direction to it in the image itself. It's just plopped into the center. And again, more space on the back than in the front. It's not great. So just if you switch that around, it would already feel a lot more natural. This, however, feels like it's exactly in the place where it wants to be, even though also, well, it's centered, I would say. Yeah, this looks centered. Gray cars on gray background can work really well if the lighting is done right. And I think mostly the lighting is pretty darn good. Just this edge here that you see there, it's almost disappearing into the background. So whenever you're taking pictures like this, what you should be checking for is, are there edges of my car which are merging with the background? And if you find those, then you need to fix those in terms of lighting. And this is the only thing I would want to point out for that one.
Or something in a situation like that is if you're trying to hide certain parts of your car, like if it's got some really awkward proportions, or if it's a big one is it's a trick that modern car manufacturers do, especially when they're taking pictures of SUVs and trying to make them look sporty, is that you can kind of hide some of the bulk by doing something like that and make it look sleeker and sporty.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of
like merge them into the background. No one will notice.
Exactly.
Yep.
So that's a rule that sometimes can and should be broken if you can do it carefully and creatively.
Yes. Let's take a look at, just the beautiful car. I like how present the car is in the scene. It does benefit from everything that we have said so far, and especially some lighting from the right slightly behind the car onto the side to really make that pop some more. I think that would do wonders. Also, I'm not quite sure with because of the angle, you can't really change that because that's the skylight here. The bonnet being that bright might be a little too much, but it's very hard to avoid that in these scenes. Otherwise, beautiful. Also, just a little bit more to the front. Otherwise, but it's just minor. This is really nicely framed. Otherwise, it's good. Is an example of a bad shot. So from the same person, showing us how it's done really well and how it's not done. So I can't really see the car here. It's either too dark or too bright. So overexposed and a little bit unexposed. And also it's hovering. And also it is... Where is this? What photo scene is this? I don't know. But yes, so I would say the car doesn't have any presence in this image. And it's definitely not filling the frame, and it's not using the natural framing of the scene to its advantage either. So definitely working there with stands, with changing the angle of the wheels. We just need to see more of the car. Fix the lighting there, more fill light for those darker parts, and then we're talking about a good one, because the scene could make for a good shot. But yeah, this is not it.
It's also taken from a strange height too. Like it's not taken right down at the ground level, which is kind of an interesting dramatic effect, but it's also from a documentary perspective, at least when I'm taking shots of cars, I like to see them sort of from what would feel like a natural eye level. So, I mean, that would be a natural eye level if you're like 2 years old, but not so much for a normal person.
Oh, that's a very small 2-year-old. That is... Yes. Okay. What is this? What is this? I hopped over a person there. That's really nice lighting for a car that is... What is this composition? Mr. Chips, help me out here.
Yeah, that's a little bit weird. There's a lot of ground in there. It almost feels like
Almost like the
someone took a
tripod
picture-
was falling mid shot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the sacking tripod, like the camera is just dropping down while taking the photo.
Or the camera
because
had a little
otherwise
bit
it's
of
good.
lag.
Yeah. Because otherwise the lighting is beautiful on this one. It's very natural lighting style, obviously ray traced and stuff, but
It's very difficult to get a black car to look nice with lighting, especially with sort of a darker background like that. But that did pull it off for sure.
yeah, it did. So I wonder what the hell is going on with this composition, because otherwise it's a great car to take a photo of like this, and having this not too bright, not too dark reflections, just showing all the details here on the front of the car. It's great. So yeah, a little bit to work on there, but otherwise brilliant. What do we have here? That's what a movie. No, we're not going to take a look at that now. Composite into real world stuff. Difficult to do in a scene like this as well. I don't know if that was successful or not. I can't really see much of the car, to be honest.
The scale is a little bit off. The car feels way too small for the road it's on.
Yes, that's true. It's on a smallish road. Yeah. You can see that in the barrier here. That's a massive barrier. They tend to be a little smaller.
Very tall barrier.
All right, let's take a look here. We have... That is a problem with this photo scene. Like the size, the scale of the asphalt here is completely fucking wrong. So bad. And of course, the one who took the picture can't change that, but that's awful looking. Probably a factor 10 off in terms of scale. But for the car, yeah, well, the direction is good. We can see this is kind of on a diagonal composition. That works. The lighting, not so great, but now you know all the tricks there, how you can make this car pop a little bit more in a good way. The lighting in this scene, it tends to be quite harsh. So I think that was the one where you could previously change the lighting, the time of day and stuff. That's probably now down to some presets. I would choose a little bit of a softer light, especially for a car that is yellow. You know, as the light and yellow tends to go haywire. But yes, let's go on here. That is a nicely lit shot. And a cool build. But yes. I would like to see ever so slightly more of the scenery. But otherwise, it's a good one. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that quite a bit.
Very nice.
The neat thing is it's kind of got soft lighting and sort of warm lighting, but it actually didn't really affect the car too much, even though being orange, it is sort of the ultimate warm color, and
Yep.
it works somehow.
It does, yeah. It's when you don't go for too strong contrasts in the image, when everything is a little decontrasted, then you can get this kind of soft light effect, and this one pulled it off beautifully. And this lighting here, now that's great.
That's really nice. I really like that. It's got
Just
that kind
a
of soft
subtle
vintage
colors.
lighting to it.
Yeah, really vintage colors and lighting. And yeah, this just really pulls it off. I love the arrangement here as well of the cars. It shows them off nicely. And you know what it does? This one has more of a direction into the image like this. Then the next car a bit further. But the last car actually points back into the image. So that when you reach it, you don't necessarily want to bounce out of the image, but bounce back and take another look and so on. So that kind of helps. And I think the arrangement in this half circle here is really nicely chosen. Overall, just great lighting, fantastic colors, good builds. And I probably wouldn't change anything about this, because in this kind of lighting, you want to keep it simple. If you can pull it off this way, if it's so nice and subtle, the lighting. You don't want to throw in lots of spotlights and whatnot and make them pop more. The only thing that might work is have a very weak one from this side, so that the first car pops a little bit more. But what that could do is that it takes too much attention away from the others. So that would be something to try, but I'm really happy with this shot. That is beautifully done. Who was that?
Mad Supercat.
Mad Supercat. Yes, that is beautiful, man. That is great. Okay, continue.
Yeah, they tend to do really very good photos, and if anybody sees pictures from them, they're always an example to follow.
Here we have an example of too tight, a little bit too tightly shot.
Also, I believe all of them are legacy images as well.
Yeah, that one is a little bit too tight for sure.
Too tight for sure, yes. And this one has a contrast issue with the starkest contrast being right here between the black and the white. You don't get it more than that. So you kind of get stuck here going into the image, while you probably wanted to focus on this part, which has very interesting lighting effects there, and with the headlights being on and such. Overall, I don't think this works. This would probably work better with more context of the surroundings. Find better natural framing for it to stand out. And this also feels like it's... Oh yeah, no, it doesn't just feel like it. Look at these lines. They are all tilted slightly. This is what I mean with either you do Dutch angle or you don't. You don't do 4 degrees. Because 4 degrees is not enough, unless you have very good reason for it otherwise. But yeah, this is maybe a little bit more, 5, 6 maybe. But yeah, this is not enough in the context of the image to make it cool or trendy looking. But otherwise, we've already talked about all the other things, like a bit more space here probably to the downside, because this one is very much pointing downwards in the image. Here, that is a missed opportunity. This is clearly a shot which is supposed to show a direction and kind of tell a story. And we do see parts of the road back there. Move the camera, or the car, slightly, or both rather, slightly more to the left, like together so that it doesn't fall out of the frame, and get a bit of a different direction on it so that you see where the road leads, because that tells a story. Road disappearing there, going around, blah, 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 over there. Have something in the distance, because this car looks into the distance, but it looks off screen. It does look off frame. And with something else leading there as well, you kind of want to see that. There's something happening there, but it's cut off. So yeah. That as a tip there.
Something I like to point out about that image is, if we just go back to that for a second, you'll notice there's actually very strong framing on the right-hand side there with an object in the foreground.
Yes, that's
This
good.
is one This is actually one where it really works quite well. It doesn't. It's sort of the same kind of color families and stuff, but it's being blurred out with the. I'm assuming that's just like an aperture and focal length.
Yeah.
trick.
And you know why it's working? Because it's not on the entry of the image, but on the exit of the image. We are reading from left to right. It is on the right-hand side. So it's not what we see first, but what we see last. And then it acts as a frame instead of, what the hell is this? So that's nicely chosen. Yes, I agree.
I quite like how that one turned out in that regard.
This one looks like a lot more could have been done with it. Like, it has the right tendencies for the lighting being quite harsh. I think that works, and everything else being quite grey. But the lighting overall needs to be worked at for this, because the composition overall is pretty good. I like that. Apart from the angle, this one also has the trouble of too little angle or too much angle. Your choice.
When it comes to Dutch angle, no half measures. Either just go for it or don't.
Yeah, at least 10 degrees. Usually at least 10 degrees as a point of reference. Otherwise, it's just too little. Kind of same thing here. Not enough space there to the bottom. And that definitely needs a side light in these lighting conditions. You need to do something with, especially if you put the headlights on. Have some spotlights illuminate the car. I know most of you didn't know about those before, but this one would definitely benefit from it. And here we have an example of nicely set in the scene for what it is doing. The direction is, you can see where it's driving, but it's also flying. Sorry, yeah, it's flying, it's not driving. Or is that
It
just
could
a
also be
weird
doing a
shadow?
stopping where how the red lights are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some powerful braking and good grip in the front. Yep.
The problem is this one doesn't really pop very well, so it needs
no.
a lot more lighting. on
Yeah,
it.
it does need support from other lights as well. But in general, that's the right thought. Like direction, let the viewer also see where the car is headed. Oh, this one is kind of cute. Needs to be wider. This one benefits from being wider. Let me show you real quick, because that one is such an easy example.
I think this one also could have done with a swap of colors in the cars too.
Yes, this one
Because
is a little Blair yellow, next
That
to
one-
the other
that-
yellow.
The cream color, I think, would have worked better as one of the side cars and have a bright one right in the middle. So
Right.
have the bright car draw your attention in, and then have the other ones sort of focusing the attention back in as you move left to right and right to left.
Oh, it did manage it. Holy shit, it has gotten good. I remember a few years back, this was a horror show. Well, here it didn't quite work as well. But you see how much better they are placed? This might be a little too much space even to the sides, but just a tiny bit. Compared to that makes a big difference for an image like this. And yeah, let's continue on. This is cool. That is properly using the suspension or the placement of the car to create the effect of it sliding around and doing stuff. Yeah, I think that's well done. Very grainy, extremely grainy, and shitty lighting. That's really bad lighting on the car. Maybe that's supposed to be an effect, but this doesn't work for me. What is cool in this situation, look at what the car is doing. It is out of control, and the car is compositionally out of control in that it's too close to this border, it's pointing out to where you can't see, but it is going over there. So as a storytelling point, or from a storytelling point of view, this composition is perfect because it creates this unease that you are also showing at the same time in the image. And at the same time, you're also telling the story of where the car actually wants to be going. So this is one of those situations where you have a clear exception to the rule of having space or not, because you want to create exactly this feeling this evokes. So that is very well done. Lighting is atrocious, but that can be worked on. And otherwise, this is very grainy. I don't know what happened there. Maybe it's a filter effect or something.
It looks like it's a material change actually, because it's the road ahead is sort of what you'd expect from a dirt road texture, and this is something different. I don't
that's
actually
right.
know if this is even automation, to be honest. I think it might
No.
actually be BeamNG.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, it's very clearly somewhere in Italy because the foliage is a copy paste. You can tell by the immediate grass above the wing mirror and then the immediate grass next to the antenna. That's the same sprite.
Right.
Yeah, good spot. Good spot.
Documentary image of many a car. No composition whatsoever, I would think. Is there any composition I can spot in here? I don't think so. So this is just all over the place?
Nah, this appears to just be a ladder shot or a drone shot.
Yeah. So
It's a good ad for Axion Energy,
yeah.
but not really showing off a car.
No, I don't even see cars in here. They're not anywhere I look. That's some nice lighting on this one, on the back, not on the side. This should be helped out, but also the framing. Oh, yeah, a little bit more space, just a little bit more space. Could even be all around the edges, but especially to the front and to the top here. It needs a little bit more breathing room. That would make it a fair amount better. Let's continue on. We have some... that photo scene again. Yeah. I don't know. That is... I'm too distracted by this awfulness of the asphalt.
I'm pretty sure the last time I used that photo scene, I used like a huge truck and it still looked small.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, the cars are looking way too small in this scene, yes. In this one, definitely want to keep the cars further back in the image, or the camera further forwards. So have more on this side, because they're facing that way. Unless they are very much in motion and you have them offset, driving behind each other, then I think that would work. where one is way to the front, but clearly in motion, and the car behind is also clearly in motion. But yeah, this is compositionally not that appealing. I see what you're going for, like a comparison shot or something between the colors.
The focal length is awfully short on that. Like usually, your typical focal length for the human eye is about 43 millimeters or so. So it's actually a little bit longer than the default that we have in automation of 35. And most cameras' focal length, at least your standard kit lens, is 55 millimeters. So this is
Yeah,
going
55.
below that, and you have to have a really good specific reason to go below that. And generally, shooting cars, it's not a good idea to do that. I find real or automation.
Yeah. 35 is usually still pretty good. That is what is most commonly used for landscape shots, unless you go wide angle, which is down to 24 then. But yes, you're definitely right. You get unintended consequences to the lines of the cars if you go below 35. And this one looks like it's a little bit wider. Okay, then moving on. We have a Mini, a racing Mini. Let's take a look. Unfortunately, no wheel blur, and we want to place it further back. This one is a prime example of where it just outright benefits from being slightly further back, like back end be here instead, for instance. That would already make a world of difference to the overall feel and give a better sense of speed as well. If you are placing it exactly in the middle, that takes away a little bit of that speed because there's the sense of direction is diminished.
I see you have a question there again, Silverblade. Go ahead and ask it if you want.
And it's kind of pointless now because it was supposed to be ages ago. It was about the photo scene that I used. That was actually never released.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that was the one you were working on, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then I gave up because of procrastination.
Classic.
Fair enough.
Yes, fair enough as well, yeah. I finally found the image that I was trying to find before. It was just way further down. It's just too slow. Yeah. This one. This one has foreground detail, which really works for the shot because it feels more like a documentary shot as well as a car shot at the same time. I don't know how you pull that off, but there's foreground detail which is actually covering the car, giving it much more sense of depth, and beautiful build, very nicely lit. And while for a pure car shot, of course, you wouldn't want to have anything covering the car, this is also using like pretty nice framing. Like this one is acting as a natural frame. Then you have that line over there, which is could have moved the car a little bit further away from it so that you can see the whole thing, so that it acts even better as a frame. But I really like it. Like the build is fantastic. And
that is, of course, a variation on the car that we have as our
which is
title shot,
I believe,
on
right?
the Steam page. Yes, that is.
Yeah, and that is one of the best shots that we have seen so far. I mean, the lighting here. Can you see that there's some additional lighting back here in the back? You can see the shadow being lit here. This might actually be one of those light props. It wouldn't surprise me if that was either a naturally in the scene occurring extra light that is there, or one of those spotlights.
I believe that's a sign for like a store, possibly.
That would be a really bright one, though. But anyway, this is just a fantastic image, which is why we have it on our Steam page. And this is top notch. Can be made ever so slightly better if playing around with lights from the front to give slight highlighting along some of those details here, but not too much because that would upset the overall balance of where details are located in the image. Also very important to think about as a concept, as a whole. Where you have details in the image that the eye is drawn to, you make the image, in air quotes, heavier. What you want to try is to keep that somewhat balanced throughout the image so that the image doesn't fall over to one side. Like, it feels as if it falls over to one side or the other. And so be careful about your lighting there of high detailed areas. If they are far to the side of the image, or to one end of the image, that might tip the weight out of balance. But you would probably notice if you pay some attention to that it somehow feels off. And this one doesn't feel off. This feels very centered and stable. And it's a very nice balance between the details in it. And I think we very soon need to wrap up here. We have seen... Let's spot if we can see some... We've already talked about this one. Passes the squint test. Seeing some really nice ones there. That's sticking out as... Yeah, this one would also benefit from extra lighting there, especially on the front. Classic, well, it's a little too bright here. Would benefit from more space on the bottom. Yes, and some better balance in the lighting. This is too bright. It's a little too bright. Go lower on the exposure. Have some fill lights instead for the other places. And then, one last thing that I want to show you is this here. Copy the image. One of the problems that tends to happen, we have already briefly touched on it, but let me throw that together real quick. This image here, I think suffers from you not quite knowing where to look, reflection or main car, and that is not good, because what do you see if you happen to find yourselves in between that? Nothing of interest, right? So let's get quickly in here, filter and camera raw. I use that because I don't know Photoshop, but I do know camera raw because I'm a photographer. So let me see that, and we are going to lower the exposure on that. Shadows, no. Clarity, no. We don't need more clarity in the shadows. I'm going to paint the shadows darker. Look at these. Look at these. There we have much darker shadows. Okay, I overshot a little bit. Mask options, remove. There. Okay, perfect. So now activate this and see what's going on. Yep, pretty good. Pretty good like this. And
Much
now,
improved.
and we are going to add a new one and a new modifier, and then I show you something else. We're not going to make them darker. It's just what is currently being selected. Like that. That is good. Let's see if I've caught everything. Turn on the mask. Yeah, good enough. What we are going to do here is actually make them a little bit brighter and turn up the shadows ever so slightly so that, oh, well, maybe that was not what we wanted. Just the shadows need to be a little bit brighter so that we start to see the interior and more details in the cars. And then we can also turn up our best friend, which is clarity. And just a little bit. Don't have to overdo it. And now, let me show you before and after. That's a pretty major difference, I would say. Does that come through nicely? There you go. That switched over. And that really makes you focus much more on what you're supposed to. That is on the cars. And I think with that, we have run a very, very extensive workshop here. And I think it's time to wrap up. Because it's 3 hours behind bedtime for me. So, Mr. Chips, would you like to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up here. If anybody has any questions, we can just quickly answer them. Actually, if you want to take off, Rob, I can continue the stream for a little while longer still.
Oh no, we missed these images. They're so damn good.
There's a lot more of them. There's a lot more of them.
This shot is amazing, by the way. It's so good. But yeah, it's so good.
That one can actually do with a little bit extra lighting on the car, just to sort of quieten down the lighting a little bit.
Yeah, just dull down neon in the back, which is ironic, and then yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think the scenery is stunning, but yes, if you put a light in the front and turn on the headlights, this one needs it because otherwise it's not competing well against these neon brutish lights. Turn on the headlights, set the headlight intensity to beyond 100. Make it 400, 500-ish. That will give them a little bit of a glow. That will really make this image pop. And add a spotlight that is coming from the front, pretty soft, that just is adding a little bit of highlighting there. And then turn on the denoising for the ray tracing, and you have a winner. That's a beautiful shot then. All right, yes. Whoa, that's nicely lit as well. This subtle lighting. Neat. And this one, this is the best one we've seen today. And I think this one summarizes this workshop pretty well. Just a few dead people, but otherwise we did reasonably well. So that's all good. I should push that stop recording button now, and I thank you for attending the photo workshop. And you know what I'm looking forward to? Much improved photos in the car showcase. Not that there are only bad photos in there, quite the opposite, but now you know the tools. And you have learned a little bit about composition and lots of practical examples as well for how to do better. I hope you enjoyed, and I shall see you guys next time.